Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we need to talk about a creator who's sparked a lot of conversation online lately, Layloola. If you've been anywhere near TikTok recently, you've probably seen her face or stumbled across one of her videos. But what makes her so controversial isn't just the viral content, it's the way she presents herself, especially when it comes to her religious identity. Let's be clear right from the start, this isn't a personal attack. This is a public commentary about public content. When someone posts content meant for millions to see, it invites public analysis, especially when there are contradictions involved. What we're exploring today isn't about being judgmental, it's about understanding the patterns, signals, and broader implications of a creator's content, and Layloola's content is layered, inconsistent, and yes, confusing to many. At first glance, Layloola's page looks like your typical lifestyle influencer feed. She's got a carefully curated aesthetic, heavy makeup, a specific pose she uses in nearly every video, and an overall vibe that feels polished and deliberate. Her go-to angle is always the same, a knee forward pose that contours her figure in a certain way. It's not unusual for influencers to pose strategically, it's practically the norm, but where it starts to raise eyebrows is when that aesthetic is mixed with religious symbolism. Layloola frequently wears the hijab in her videos, a symbol of modesty and devotion in Islam. But in many of those same videos, she's also wearing tight, form-fitting clothing, leggings, flare pants, and tops that accentuate her figure. This has led many viewers to question whether her portrayal of religious modesty aligns with the values the hijab represents. In Islamic tradition, modesty isn't just about the headscarf, it's about the overall presentation. Loose-fitting clothes, understated appearance, and a focus on humility, rather than physical display. This isn't just a minor detail. For many Muslims, especially young women trying to navigate religious expectations in a digital age, seeing the hijab styled in a way that contradicts its purpose is deeply frustrating. It sends mixed signals about what modesty means and how it should be practiced, and when that presentation comes from someone with hundreds of thousands of followers, the impact is amplified. One of the most talked about examples is Layloola's video preparing for Ramadan, this holy month of fasting and reflection in Islam. In the video, she makes a show of throwing away her usual flare pants and leggings, replacing them with a more traditional garment, the halabia, and bringing out items like a new prayer rug and a Quran.
They never had a pretty girl from Joburg to me now, and that's what they prefer. I don't touch no wheel, cause I got a chauffeur. First class, how I get around the water. Just lands me with the job, unless you come in with the commas. Or DJ came me sound up, cause we about to part around up.
The message? That she's turning a new leaf for Ramadan. But here's where things get sticky. Just a few videos before that, she was lamenting how modest clothes don't look modest on her body. Then almost overnight, she's dressed head to toe in traditional modest wear. This sudden shift, conveniently timed with the start of Ramadan, doesn't feel organic. It feels calculated, like a costume change rather than a spiritual transformation. Worse yet, in that same video where she's tossing out items deemed inappropriate for the holy month, she throws away perfume, which is not prohibited in Islam, but keeps a full face of makeup on while showcasing her prayer setup. It's details like these that make viewers question the sincerity of the religious content. Is this really about devotion or is it content strategy? And that's not even the most jarring contradiction. That title goes to her Valentine's Day post, a video where she proudly proclaims she's your first Arab Valentine. This too featured her in Fashion Nova clothing, a brand notorious for its provocative styles. The issue: Valentine's Day isn't typically celebrated in Islam, and many scholars actively discourage it due to its non-Islamic origins. So, when someone who claims to represent Islamic values turns around and celebrates a holiday that's fundamentally opposed to those values while in a sponsored ad, it sends a very different message. Fashion Nova, by the way, is a brand built on the idea of sexy, body hugging fashion. Their ethos is about boldness and body confidence, not modesty or religious adherence. So, when a creator wearing a hijab partners with them, it creates an undeniable clash between brand values and religious symbolism. Many of her followers, and plenty of curious onlookers, took to the comments to express their confusion. Some were genuinely hurt, others were baffled, a few were just watching to see the train wreck. This points to a larger trend on social media, sometimes called the Ramadan switch. It's when influencers suddenly pivot to religious content during holy periods like Ramadan, only to switch back to their usual programming the moment it ends. This isn't something exclusive to Layloola. It's a social media phenomenon seen across platforms and religions where spiritual moments are commodified for engagement. For example, TikTok every year sees a spike in Ramadan content. People who never mention a religion suddenly post Quran verses, prayer reminders, and modest fashion hauls. But as soon as Eid hits, it's back to regular content, often completely contradictory. And when this is done for likes, follows, and brand deals, it feels more like a trend than a testament of faith. What makes this so problematic is the performative nature of it. Social media rewards engagement, whether it's positive or negative. The algorithm doesn't care if someone's praising you or calling you out. A comment is a comment, a view is a view. That means outrage content, or rage bait, can be just as profitable as inspirational content. In fact, it's often more effective. Layloola's most inconsistent videos consistently outperform her more straightforward content. The engagement is through the roof, even if much of it comes from people criticizing her. And this begs the question, is this a deliberate strategy? Are these contradictions intentional, meant to stir up discourse and drive traffic to her page? Another contradiction worth pointing out is the frequent pairing of hijab content with overtly posed, body-emphasizing visuals. As mentioned earlier, her signature knee-forward pose is featured in nearly every video. It's clearly a way to highlight her figure. Which on its own isn't an issue unless you're also claiming to be promoting religious modesty. This visual branding, when paired with hijab, sends a conflicting message, and it leads to an even bigger concern. What message is this sending to her audience? For Muslim viewers are trying to understand their faith and how to live it authentically, this kind of content can be incredibly confusing. It blurs the lines between spiritual commitment and personal branding. It reduces religious symbols to props. And for non-Muslim viewers, it can foster stereotypes about hypocrisy within religious communities when someone is simultaneously presenting themselves as devout and participating in content that clearly contradicts those values. It can reinforce damaging misunderstandings. People might come away thinking that hijab is just a fashion choice, not a religious practice rooted in values of modesty, humility, and spirituality. The truth is, representation matters. When someone becomes a prominent public face of a religious identity, they take on a certain responsibility, whether they like it or not. That doesn't mean they have to be perfect. No one is. But it does mean they need to be aware of the messages they're sending, especially when their platform reaches hundreds of thousands of people. There are influencers out there who do this well. One example is Earth Takadai. In one of her posts, she talks about prayer and its deeper meaning, not just as a routine, but as a source of protection, peace, and spiritual benefit. She acknowledges that it's not always easy, but emphasizes consistency and effort. That's the kind of vulnerability and authenticity that resonates. Contrast that with Layloola's timeline, where if a video about choosing Dean over Dunya is followed immediately by a post celebrating worldly pleasures. It's the spiritual equivalent of preaching veganism one day and hosting a barbecue the next. The message gets lost, the credibility suffers, and the audience is left scratching their heads. The issue isn't that she struggles, everyone does. The issue is the apparent lack of sincerity. If you're going to wear a hijab for religious content, then ditch it for a lingerie haul days later. It creates whiplash. It's not a slow evolution or a documented personal journey. It's a jarring commercial flip-flop. To be fair, there is a possibility that Layloola is genuinely figuring things out. Faith journeys are rarely linear. People go through phases of exploration, confusion, and change. But again, the speed and timing of these changes, often aligned with holidays trends or brand deals, makes them seem less like personal growth and more like marketing strategies. Another major concern is the body image message wrapped inside her content. When she says modest clothes don't look modest on her body, it suggests that some bodies are inherently incapable of modesty. That's a dangerous idea and completely false in Islamic teachings. Modesty is about intent, clothing type, and behavior, not body shape. Every person, regardless of how they're built, can dress modestly. The way she frames it implies that certain body types are incompatible with modest dress, and that the only solution is to wear tight-fitting clothes even when promoting religious values. That's not just misleading, it's harmful, especially for young viewers struggling with their own body image and self-worth. As a result, her comments section is often filled with viewers expressing concern, not hate, but disappointment. Muslim women asking genuine questions about how these contradictions align with the faith, and non-Muslims expressing confusion. It's not trolling, it's people trying to make sense of what they're seeing. Some defenders argue that this is just part of her religious journey and that it's unfair to criticize someone for being imperfect. That would be true if the inconsistencies reflected genuine struggle or evolution, but what we see instead are sharp, deliberate pivots that coincide with seasonal trends or brand promotions. We also need to consider the broader ecosystem. Platforms like TikTok are designed to reward virality, not sincerity. Content that stirs debate, triggers reactions, or generates controversy often performs better than content that's consistent or nuanced. So creators, especially influencers, are incentivized to be outrageous rather than authentic. It's not entirely their fault, but it is something we need to talk about. As viewers, we also play a role. Every time we engage with content, or even to criticize it, we're telling the algorithm this is worth watching. That means hate watching or doom scrolling these contradictions actually helps promote them. If we want to see more thoughtful, sincere content, we need to reward it with our attention, not just the drama. So what would more authentic religious content actually look like? It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be polished 24/7. It would look human. It would show the messy parts, the doubts, the challenges, the imperfect attempts to live by one's faith. It would be honest, and it wouldn't contradict itself purely for clout. Imagine if Layloola had said, "I'm struggling to reconcile my love of fashion with my religious values. Some days I get it right, some days I don't. Here's what I'm learning." That would have landed so differently. That would have sparked support, empathy, and real connection. Instead, what we get is a highlight reel of contradictions. Ramadan content one day, Valentine's Day promos the next, hijab with tight pants, lingerie followed by prayer rugs. It's not a faith journey, it's a content carousel. In closing, this isn't about canceling anyone, it's about thinking critically. Social media is a powerful tool, and with it comes responsibility.